Mariam, thank you so much for joining me for this walk. My name is Tanisha Comers. I am a certified financial planner and the president and founder of KFLA, Canada's first financial literacy agency. Today, we happen to be talking to Mariam Ali, who has been in the mortgage and credit industry since 2007. She is mortgage licensed, she did a Bachelor of Arts, and she also happens to have a financial coaching certificate. What is that exactly, Mariam?
That's to help people get out of debt, and just to help people get out of debt and just to really help them with their cash flow. Thanks for the intro, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, part of the reason that we have such interesting backgrounds going on here is when I asked Mariam how she relaxes during COVID, she told me her method is outdoors. So hopefully we don't interrupt anybody too badly or weird them out as we discuss cash flow. Although they might benefit from it, right, Mariam?
Totally.
We had a couple of things we were going to talk about. I remember the first point had to do with how to reduce your expenses overall and make sure that you can maintain kind of like your COVID habits going forward. Tell me a little bit about that.
There's lots of different ways. I mean, we've all been hunkered in and not really spending money because we can't spend money just because everything has been shut down. So one of the ways would be like going out for dinner. We haven't been able to do that. That's a way of saving money. Even just during this time, like just people not paying for summer camps and sports for their children. That's one way that people have been able to save money.
One of the examples that I have that I definitely notice with my significant other is every once in a while through the week, we get really lazy and we decide to go out for a pub meal, right? And it's not anything particularly special. This is us just going, okay, we're hungry, we need to eat, let's just go grab something, right? Man, oh man, right. The amount of money I've saved just getting like the frozen boxed chicken nuggets for him and like frozen samosas and stuff like that. Like,
oh, of course, right? I mean, I'd rather have someone cook for me than cook for myself, right?
So you mentioned also that like kind of everybody's everyday expenses decreased in general. And obviously that was kind of out of our control. I mean, I had a few clients mention like, oh my God, Tanisha, I have extra cash halfway through the month. So right. One of the things we wanted to mention, I remember when we talked about this the first time, was how somebody can take advantage of that.
Yeah, like even like, we haven't been going out. So even like money you've been saving for gas, right? Like whatever it is each month that you've been saving, right? Or even like, the auto insurance, you got 2 vehicles and whatever, the health insurance, all that money, if you just add that up and put that into a reserve, right? Because these times have shown us that we do need to have just some reserves, right? Just for the odd, whatever, the thing that breaks down, that $200, whatever, the $500. But if we just have $1,000 instead of putting it on a credit card, it would just save a lot of anxiety and a lot of headache as well. And so adding up those things that you've been saving and just setting it aside as a reserve. Yeah. I love the view, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, I'm trying to get away from the main drag right now as quickly as possible. Ooh, nice. I like that.
You like that? Yeah.
I mean, having a little bit more cash goes a long way, right? Saving an extra $500-600 every month. Well, if you turn around and apply that and you usually have a $3,000 month, well, now you have 1 month and a week's worth, just about of cash.
If there's not enough cash flow, I mean, one way would be just to even see if you could start an online business, right? I'm seeing all these people start up businesses, whether it is, like I mentioned, like the cooking classes, right? Or exercise classes or whatever the case may be. That could be one way. And with what we were saying about with the cash flow and whatever, I know people do not like the B word budget, but keeping track of like
it's like everybody's scariest word,
right? Like nobody wants to do that. That's like so scary. But just keeping track of the budget, like so that you know what's coming in versus what's going out. So it's like I just keep mine. I just handwrite it. So you can do it in Excel or whatever, and just keep track of like what's coming in and what's going out. And that way, a person can figure out like how much extra they do have in regards to the cash flow and all that kind of stuff. So that, because just as of Friday, right, Alberta has opened up, right, quite a few different areas. So people can totally
be a new world again.
Right. And so I would say to keep track of all that stuff now, before the spending kind of goes back to the way it was, because if we've all been naturally saving during this time, and you could call it like more of a forced savings type thing because of what's been going
Yeah,
on, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Right, we can keep track now and then really like do without some of the stuff that we did with before.
That is a really, really good point, Mariam. I had a couple clients who actually mentioned to me that, it was really obvious to them to see how much they were overspending as soon as they were not allowed to go out or go shopping.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
So actually, speaking of cash, one of the other things that I know we wanted to talk about a little bit was the benefit of hanging on to cash versus paying down debt. So from a planning perspective, obviously a reserve is an important thing. And you mentioned like $1,000. Honestly, I love to see 3 to 6 months worth. It doesn't all have to be cash, but definitely not credit cards, right? Because
Totally.
not only the expense of the credit card, but you've mentioned also, having cash that you don't have to put it on a credit card. There's a huge psychological barrier there that helps when you know that you're not borrowing money for some of your basic expenses.
I agree, like 3 to 6 months. But I would say if a person has nothing, even to start with 1,000, just something.
That's a really good point. Yeah, absolutely. Just to start somewhere and to start building that reserve.
But as for in regards to cash or debt, I would have a teeny bit of reserve first, and then I would be going into paying off some of that debt.
So Sue Zorman was or has been advising people not to pay down their debts, because if they pay down their debt, they may not have access to it again. That's actually, in my opinion, a valid point to consider, that if our economy changes dramatically and you have individuals who, again, aren't working, the institutions are not going to be very inclined to lending money out, right? And if you have debt, they might actually reduce the amount of debt you have access to. So let's say you have a $15,000 unsecured line of credit, they could possibly decide that no, now it's actually a $10,000 unsecured line of credit.
Yeah, we've actually started hearing of that as well, even with home equity lines of credit, where someone pays down a portion of it, and then or they go to withdraw from it, and then they realize that it's been the limit has been reduced to what they owe on it, so they actually can't even pull out a penny. It's actually pretty scary.
Even on home equity lines of credit?
Yeah, really we've actually heard of that. Yeah.
That's crazy. It's almost frightening, because, one of the, actually, that's a really good thing that we are speaking about this, because one of the things that a lot of advisors talk about, myself included, is the possibility of using home equity lines of credit and lines of credit as part of your emergency reserve. So there is some validity in what Sue Zorman is saying about perhaps not paying down debts in these kind of extreme times in order to hang on to a little bit more cash for yourself and not to rely on the lending institution.
Now, I've also heard that people with credit cards are also having the same thing happen as well, where not just home equity lines of credit, but yeah, exactly what you had said, that once they pay it down to whatever amount, they're the limits are completely just dropped right down. It is kind of scary. I don't know if this is like if you've got poor credit, or if you're like over leveraged already, or like, I don't know what the criteria is why lenders are doing this. I don't know why some people are having this happen to them and some aren't, but it is scary in that boat. Yeah, to be in that boat, especially if you think that's like, quote unquote, the emergency fund.
Of course, if you have longer term goals for debt repayment, that's a different thing, right? And you do still want to be paying that down. So
honestly, like you need to have two forms of credit anyway, so you never want to pay everything off and then close it, but at the same time, you do want to pay down the debts. For me, what I would always recommend is paying the smallest one first. I'd also say treat yourself after two. And
that's a good point.
Yes. And then take that $50, this is called the snowball effect, and put it towards the next debt. So if the next debt, the minimum payment is $100, so now instead of paying just $100, now pay $150. And then you really, really pay off your debts really fast that way. So, and you just keep it up until all the debts are paid off. But but that is one way to pay off debts. And yeah, it's a bit of an uncertain time right now, like, with advice to give and whatever, but I'm all for paying off debts. I'm all for that. But
I hear you. I think that ultimately what somebody watching this has to take away from this conversation, best strategy for you depends on your specific circumstances, because obviously if you have really great cash flow and you're not worried about it and whatnot, then focusing on paying down the debts in a snowball manner, as Mariam mentioned, is one of the smartest ways to do it. Otherwise, if you're in a situation where there may already be some debts on the table and you're not sure what your income situation looks like in the future and you need to build a reserve, then it would be wiser to focus on that than it would be to focus on paying off credit cards, as expensive as they are, which is really weird advice to give, I know.
You want to have a teeny bit of that, just even $1,000 or whatever, best case scenario, 3 to 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, you just need something.
I completely agree with you. It's really, that's definitely a reason to make sure that there's always a little bit of cash available for you. So then we were talking about basically ways to reduce your expenses, basically to maintain your habits. Either way, debt's obviously expensive. I think the end thing to take away from this too in general is not to rely on the institutions to be your saving grace, really, which is something we've talked about before, but don't rely on your lenders, right? Like, keep your own cash on hand if possible. The other thing you mentioned about the snowball effect is it's already super well known, or at least it's something a lot of people have heard about. But Mariam, you told us today that basically you could either focus on the high interest first, which is what you mentioned is something that a lot of people do, right? Or you can focus on the smallest debt in general first, just so that you get that like feel good psychological win and go forward.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, like, I don't know, I'm all for the feel good stuff. Like, I want to feel good after I do something, and paying off, even if it's $200 and that's the limit, then you have something else where you owe $2,000, pay off the 200 and make sure you treat yourself. And I'm talking like an ice cream cone, not a $200 gift.
Oh, so you mean going to buy yourself a designer handbag after paying off your $300 credit card is not a good idea?
Yeah, and then get the $500 designer bag, yes.
Yeah.
It's an amazing time right now to hone in on finances, because we're all dealing with this all together, and people can talk about it and whatever and see what other people are doing, and yeah, like, now is an amazing time to actually get a grip on the finances and have the money work for you instead of you working for the money, in a huge way.
Not as many spending temptations or opportunities, yes. Distractions, and so yeah, you can turn around and focus your cash. The other thing I just kind of wanted to underscore one more time is you talked about, recording your budget. So this is something that, as you said, like, people gross out about. It sounds like a horrible idea. Why would I want to do this? It's like a diet. So instead of really thinking of limiting yourself, I would tell you that every single client I've ever done a cash flow analysis with that didn't already know their cash flow was like astounded by what their real numbers are, either because there was way more cash than they thought, or because there was way less cash than they thought. So either way, this is a really important exercise to undertake.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, I learned that I'm a bit, I guess you'd say the hard way or whatever, because I couldn't pay the rent. Like, this is 20 years ago. I could not pay the rent, and I couldn't figure out why at the end of the month. I was so strapped for cash. And 1 month of tracking my expenses, which took a while to get into the habit, you got to ask for receipts, etc. I found out right away within 1 month where my money was going. And you know where it was going?
Where?
Eating out.
Surprise!
And I couldn't believe it, right? I know, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't figure out where the money was going. And the second I figured that out, yeah, man, did things ever naturally take care of themselves? Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I've also always believed that you get what you pay attention to. So if you're paying attention to your cash flow, it'll work out for you as well.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
I mean, all of those small things add up, and especially if it's an activity or, like something that you believe in or enjoy.
I sat on this webinar and they had what was it? They had, was it $20,000-$30,000 income per month. And they literally just asked 50 of their friends. I can't remember the guy's name. It's out of the States. 50 of their friends to join the very first, Zoom call or whatever, and whether they had pets or not. And then after that, and he himself was like a chiropractor, and then he kind of helped out with dogs on the side. So he just pivoted to that because he couldn't see clients anymore and this and that, whatever. And now he's bringing in a 5-figure income every single month, literally just started because of COVID-19. Just, I know.
I do believe it. You know, like there are some really, really cool ways to make money out there. And what I wanted to leave everybody with as a thought, this is something that I hear over and over again. You know, I've been in the industry for a long time. What do your most successful clients look like? What do they do? Blah, blah, blah. Man, I can tell you the underlying principle that's true of my richest client with millions to who earn hundreds of thousands or millions a year to my, you know, well-to-do clients who maybe earn $40,000, $50,000 a year and just have really, really been working hard at it. The single common factor is that they pay attention to their cents and they let the dollars take care of themselves. So they're really looking at how much are their fees, you know, what's the amount they're paying in their insurances, you know, as you were saying, these small costs and charges, as well as, you know, are they intelligently paying down their mortgage or things like that. Like I've got a woman who, you know, she obviously pays her mortgage weekly, and I've seen a massive, massive change in the mortgage amount over the year. There's small differences like this that can really, really make a difference.
Yeah, I think it's just intentionality in a huge way. People really focusing on their money and just their intentions. And also I would say it's decision making, like what you said, exactly what you said. It's a decision to focus on this and really hone in on where the money is coming and going, and really to rein it in.
And also, you know, congratulations on you being able, like you're saying that you've kept yourself out of debt now for like 2 decades. You've always been on top of your, like your finances. You've always been able to, you know, keep yourself ahead of like an emergency. And that's not something that everybody can boast.
Thank you. But I'll tell you, it didn't start like that. I didn't eat for 2.5 days because I just didn't have any money. And that's kind of what brought a lot of this stuff on. So thank you though for saying that. That's very sweet.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It's not easy.
Thank you.
So on that note, Mariam, thank you so much for bringing your expertise to the show tonight, evening. I'm so glad we managed to, you know, take a walk and chat about cash and debt and all of these things. I'm hoping that what we put together is going to be ultimately really useful for a couple of Calgarians, maybe some Canadians, to feel rich.
Thank you, Tanisha, and I totally agree with you. That would be amazing. Even if 2 people or even 1 person, you know, this changed their lives, that would be absolutely incredible.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, well, have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine. Thanks for taking this walk with me. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Tanisha. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.